Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on your favorite Little's Law YouTube channel. So previously, we saw about the GET request, how to create the GET request, and in fact, this is the seventh episode of your Locust training session. And previously, we saw about what is Locust, how to set up Locust, and what are the other uh, softwares that we need, and then we saw how to create a GET request. So in this video, we're going to see about the post request. So today we are actually creating data, not just reading it, because reading is part of GET. So this is where the load testing gets really interesting, and I'm going to walk you through step by step, and you should follow along on your own machine. And by the end, you'll be having your working post script load test. So let's get started. And first, let's make sure we are all set up. So the first thing, the virtual environment. So open your terminal and let me get my terminal here. Yep, I have my terminal, and you should be able to see your Locust environment. If not, let's navigate to the Locust environment. Okay, so now we are in our virtual environment, and if you haven't activated it, please do activate it using Locust env scripts activate. Let me quickly do that. Locust env slash scripts. So I'm navigating in here. In fact, we're already in that folder. So let me just do scripts slash activate. Yep, we have activated the locust. And let's verify I mean, you must have already done this, but let's, if in case if you haven't done your locust installation, you can do that. But let me just quickly check the version. So here I've got the version for the locust. Come on. Yep, I've got the version and then the Python as well. So firstly, let's start creating our first post task. So let's create a new file for this session. And let me create a new file. Sorry, not in here, but here. Yep, it's going to be locust file.py. Yep, locust file.py, and I'm going to let's start typing. So firstly, the imports, and this is the most important part. So from locust import http user task between, and then I'm going to import the random. So notice that second line. So import random, and this is where we are missing before in our previous video. So type it carefully. So always import your random, and then now let's create the user class. This is the another important part of the script. So let's create the user class. So class website user of http user colon wait time equals between 2, 4. So that's the think time basically, and the longer wait time is between 2 to 4 seconds, and creating data takes longer than reading, and users spend more time thinking between the actions. So that's the reason I have increased from 1 to 3 to 2 to 4 in the script. And now let's add our first post task. So we all know how to add the task here. So that's going to be task. I'm going to define a create simple post. It's going to be post script self dot self dot client dot post. So previously for get request we did it with get, and now this is going to be post request. So I'm adding a post here. So posts comma JSON equals open braces. I'm going to add few items which I'm going to send it as part of my post request. So the first thing is the title, my test post, and then the body. this is a test post created by Little's Law, and make sure that I have comma and then the user ID colon 1. Yep. And now we are done with the post request. Let me quickly break this down. So the task here that we started here marks this as something the users will do. So this is something the request or the user action. And then we have got the self.client.post, which makes an HTTP post request. And then we have got the posts, which is the endpoint. And then we have got the JSON. So that passes the Python directory. And inside the directory, we have title, body, and the user ID. And this creates a new post with the fixed data. And every request sends the exact same data. So save your file and make sure it is locust file.py. And now let's quickly test it. So the command we all know. Let me quickly check it whether I have the file. Yep. So it's going to be locust -f locust file.py, and then the host equals https json placeholder.typico.com and enter. And now, yep, allow. So now you'll be able to see the web interface that I started here. So let me go back to that link. I'm going to change the users to like 5 users to make sure I'm running a decent load test. And let me click on start. And yep, so you can watch the terminal and you should be able to see the post request that's being made, and you can look for the status code 201. Yep, 50th percentile, the number of users, the response times, failures no, exceptions, current ratio, download data, logs, start at the locust, starting the web interface, ramping up 5 users at rate of 1 per second. And in the statistics, okay, so if you see errors, they'll tell you exactly what's wrong. So most common, some of the errors that you might get, which is missing random in case if you haven't imported the random part. And then in case if you have given any wrong URL, then we might be able to get the connection refused. And if you have any typo in code, then we'll be getting syntax error. So these are the common errors which we can expect. So always check your code very carefully. So the error message will point you to the exact line. And I believe everyone of you who was watching this video is able to run the scripts and looks everything is fine. So now let's back to the statistics part. So looking at the locust web interface, clicking on the statistics table, so you should be able to see the post request and what do the numbers mean. So we haven't previously checked about this chart, so now let me explain it to you here. In case if you do not want any of these, you can actually remove them. You can keep your report very clearly. For me, okay, I think rest everything is fine. Yeah. So yeah, the count that you see here, it's like how many count are the okay, the count. So the number of requests, which is like how many times this endpoint was called, and then we have got the median. I think I disabled it. Yep, the median. So this is 50% of requests are faster than this response time. And then we have got the 95th percentage, which is 95% of requests complete within this time. And then we have got 99 percentage, which is 99% of users have completed within this time. And the failures, so it is 0 for us for now. So with the JSON placeholder, we should be able to see the response times around like 100 to 200 milliseconds. So it's a very public API. It's not going to be very super fast. So you cannot expect what you expect in your actual production system. And if you see any failures, it means it could be a network issue, or it could be a bad data format, or if it could be a server rejecting the request. But with this simple code that we have did now, JSON placeholder accepts everything. And now moving to the next part, the charts tab. So if you see those graphs on the top one, shows the response times over time, probably, which is very pretty stable. And then we have got the response times, the middle one, which shows the request per second. So how much load you are generating. And the bottom one shows the concurrent users ramping up. So this real-time visualization is very powerful. So in a real load test, if you see response time suddenly spike, that tells you the system is struggling. So to make this test more realistic with random data, what we can do is, let me go to the top of the screen, stop the test, and let's make this more realistic. So the problem with our current code is every post sends identical data. So real users create different posts with different content. So let's quickly do some modifications in our code. So I'm opening my, let me just even stop it here as well. Yep. So now I'm on my code. So let's create a simple code in here. So I'm going to modify this way. So I'm in my create simple post self, and I'm going to add some changes to it. So I'm going to go to the self part here, and then the titles equals, oh, come on. Yeah, I think, yeah. So titles, and then I'm going to add few titles to here. So introduction to load testing, Locust best practices performance testing guide, and then API testing tips, and then we have our original code, the self client.post part. So I'm going to make a quick change there. So what I'll do is I'll add a self dot client dot post of posts, comma JSON equals, and then open braces, and here I'm going to add the title. So the title part and the random dot choice of titles, yep, followed by a comma, and then body f double quotes, this is post number, and then I'm going to add the random part. So to save some time, I've really typed it real quick. So what I'm mentioning here is, so let me quickly explain this. So first we have created a list of titles, and these are realistic post titles, and then a task of 3. So this means this task runs 3 times more than the simple post. And let me just bring it down. Yeah. And inside the post, I have chosen random.choice of titles, which will pick a random title from our list. And then we have got the random integer 1 of 10, which generates a random number between 1 and 1000. And then F, this is a post number, then line number 17, and then random of random int 1 to 1000 uses Python F strings to put the random number in the body. And then we have got the random of random int 1 comma 10, which picks a random user ID. And now I'm going to save the file, and let's quickly run the command, the previous command. And this will start with 10 users, will spawn rate, and then let me click on start spawning. So with 10 users and 2 ramp up, started it. So starting with 10 users, spawn rate, and click start swarming. So here the difference is you should be able to see 2 tasks in the endpoint list. So let's just see whether it is loading. So just to give you a quick intro, again, let me just show you this one. So I have got 2 tasks. One is with the task of 3, and as I told you, it will be like running 3 times more than the normal task. So I've got a random post and everything is same, and then I've got a normal task. So we have got 2 tasks that is running in the test. Let me quickly save this and we'll run the test. So now, as I told you, we'll be getting 2 tests. So I'm going to run this with 10 users. 10 users, ramp up of like 2, and then here we'll be able to see 2 requests, right? Posts, and then the other one. Yeah, so just a quick thing. So you should be able to see two tasks in the endpoint list, but they will both show as posts because they use the same endpoint. If you see here, they're using the same endpoint, posts and posts. That's the reason you're seeing both of them in the same name. And but the requests are coming in, and if you look at the terminal output, you'll see a different data that's being sent each time in the terminal data. Yeah. And this is so much more realistic because we are testing the server's ability to handle varied input and not just the same request repeated. So why does this matter for load testing is because the real servers have databases that cache frequently accessed data and different code paths which are based on input and then resource limits based on the data size. And now let's move on to the next step of the very useful and very important one, that is adding the validations. So for that, I'm going to add another task. I'll explain it to you real quick. So here I've got another task, and what I'm doing here as part of this is, so what has happened here? So I have added a task 2. So I've created a post data with a random content, and I stored the response equals the self.client.post of posts, and then we check the status code. So if the response code is 201, it's a successful state, and if it is anything else, then it's going to be a failure one, and we're going to print the results to make sure that we are successfully indicating on any errors. And let me quickly save this, and let's go back to the bottom of the screen, Control C. Yep. And then let me run it, and I'll quickly run the test. We'll start the test now. So I'm going to start the test with like few users, say for example like 10 users or like 15 users, and start. So if something fails, then we'll be able to see the failure. So if you see here, we have got the status code, right? Status code 201, and it shows successful status. So that's how it actually runs for the task 2, because we are printing the response status code. So that's what we are doing now. And let me quickly take you through the code. So I'm explaining with a creating of a simple post, creating a simple post request, and then I'm creating a random post, and then I'm creating and validating the post which has two. So totally we have got, so the first simple post which has got one request, and then the second part which has got three tasks, and then the final one, the task 2, which has got two. So totally we have got 6 users. So the distribution will be like the simple post will be creating 1/6 of the total test, and then the random post which will create 1/50th or 1/2 of the total request, and then the last one which has got like 1/3 of the request. So that's how we normally run the test. And yep, so far we have executed the post request, and let me quickly take you through the get request. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine the get and post request. So now here I've got my get request. I've added a task 4, and then I'm adding the get request here, self.client.get. So this is going to be my get request, and then I'm going to print all my browsing of all posts. So it's going to be a combination of get and post, and this is how exactly we are going to run the test, right? We normally don't request everything as get, and we normally don't run everything as post. So get requests are probably fastest, and then we have got the post request. Let me stop this one. So by doing this one this way, like adding both get and post requests, we are creating a realistic and more close to real world environment test. And that's how we normally run the test in terms of creating a mix of get and post. So with that, I come to the end of this video. So until I see you all in the next video, until then, it's bye bye from Mr. and your favorite Little Slaw YouTube channel. Take care and bye bye.